If you're a designer or a developer and you totally suck at sales, that's okay. This is the video for you. Now, in this video, I'm chatting to a good friend and a coach and an agency owner who has a sales framework specifically for designers and developers. He has a course for this as well, which is amazing. I'm going to be talking to Nick Gulic, and he's going to be running over his whole process just to sort of help you get away from the standard way of selling. And look, I'm even wearing the Nick Gulic hat. So stick around and check this one out. I know it's a long one, but there is there's a lot of great stuff in this one. So let's take a look. Okay, so tonight actually, on the Beyond the Brief, what we're going to be doing is talking about sales. So we all know why sales are important. Obviously, if we don't sell anything, if we don't actually close a deal, or we don't get clients to sign on the dotted line, we're not going to have any work to do. So it's kind of the backbone of what we do. If you work for yourself, it's imperative that you get it right. And a lot of designers really, really suck at it. So super stoked. Today we're having Nick Gulic on the chat. Some of you will probably already know him. Most of you do. If you don't, I don't know where you've been. But Nick Gulic has his own agency, Creative Click. He's been running that for a few years. He's got a background, all other stuff. We'll go into that stuff. He also is a coach. I've had a couple of sessions with him, and he's been really great and really helpful. And he does have a course specifically on selling for designers and web freelancers and agency owners. Super, super helpful. I've done it. I haven't done all of it. I have to admit, I haven't been through it all. I was trying to get through it before we started this session, but I haven't managed to get in there. Anyway, so that is Nick Gulic, and he has a great course. I'm going to talk about that later. And today, what we're going to be doing is going through, I guess, his process. So awesome, welcome, and thank you very much for joining us, Nick.
Hey, great intro, man.
I don't know if it's great, but
it's all right. It's good enough.
Good enough. There we go.
I've had worse.
I've probably given worse too. So how you going?
Man, I'm going all right. Tired. It's like 7:30 p.m. here for you and I. It is kind of end of the day. It's been a long one, but that's why we have alcohol and yeah.
Half your luck. I don't have a drink on me, but I meant to get one and I didn't. But I'll survive. I'll survive. If the camera goes black for a minute, you'll know what's going on.
Technical difficulties.
Yeah. Anyway, so I know you've got a presentation. We're going to run through some stuff, and what it's like a bit of a framework of a bit of an intro to what your course is.
Yeah. So look, basically, me, man. I give away a lot of info. So what I'll be running through today with the presentation side of things is the actual framework I go through and kind of how it works and why it works. And give a bit of an overview of the steps. Not as much detail as a course, but it's because the course is a lot longer and people pay money for it. But still a fair bit of
I don't think we're gonna. Yeah, well, I couldn't get through the course with everything that I've got on, and I don't think we're going to do it in an hour on Facebook. So I'm sure there's a lot for people to learn. So I've got a few questions that I wanted to ask myself, and we're going to ask, open stuff up to the Facebook group. If people do have questions, they got some thoughts, chuck them on the comments, and we'll get to them. But if not, I've got a few that I want to run through myself anyway. So I know you've got a background in other stuff. Personally, I've only ever done this. I've only ever been a designer. Your background is vast and various. So how the hell did you end up doing this, and what were you doing before?
Right. So where do I go with this story? It depends how far back we want to go. It was a cold, grey September morning. So before this, let's say the first career thing, I was actually doing software development at uni. I went to do computer science, and didn't really enjoy it that much. They were teaching what I felt was a little bit outdated tech, and I wasn't enjoying it. And I was like, this is pointless because I can't really use this that much in the workforce. And so I was kind of partying a lot and didn't really care. Ended up the first actual job I got, a friend of mine worked in an accounting firm, and he got me a job as an accountant. which was like me, an accountant. Oof. But I did it and I was good at it. And I think that was about 7 years or so, 6 or 7 years of actual being an accountant, like doing tax returns and balancing books and all that sort of stuff. And then I had enough, didn't want to do this stuff anymore. I'm like, crap, if I keep going, this is my life and this is not a life I want. I don't want to be the, work on the numbers guy. So I actually got a job, try to get a job in other places. And this guy was interviewing me about his accounting firm and wanted me to be his business development manager. And I was like, dude, I have no idea what that is. And he's like, no, great. You have a good personality. I think you'll be fine. We'll teach you everything. So started there, and they wanted me to basically go out and sell accounting to people. But they had an office in India and they were doing the work offshore. This was before Dropbox existed, before the cloud was a thing. There was no, like, if someone said cloud, it was like, yeah, cool. That's a cloud in the sky, not like the internet. So things didn't happen that way. Everything was at the office. So my job was basically, they would advertise people like cheap bookkeeping. People would call all the time. And my job would be to get them to become clients. But I was like, yeah, I'm not going to lie to people. So I'm telling them how it all works. Now you can imagine someone's calling, expecting like someone's been in their office. And then I've got to explain, no, not only we're not coming to your office, we're also going to do the work in India. Like that was a big, like, no back then. So that was like trial by fire. Then I did that for a while, actually did very, very well, and grew that business to quite big. That was like a multi 7-figure business, I think 5 mil while I was the BDM. Wow. And then I became general manager, ran a sales team, started multiple businesses for the same guy, and then left because I wasn't getting equity, which, if you guys know what equity is, it's like an ownership stake. So every time I would have an issue with the business, it'd be like, well, you're not an owner. And it's like, yeah, but I'm meant to be by now. So I kind of left. And
look at what I've done.
Yeah. So I started consulting. I had a pretty good rep with clients. They knew I knew what I was doing. So I picked up a bunch of clients just doing regular coaching and consulting for their businesses. Did that for a while. And then I started getting disillusioned with that because it's like, it's when it's general and broad, it's like the difference between being a specialist and being a generalist. In that, when you're a generalist in coaching or in consulting, it's not a fun time because you're dealing with different crap all the time and you're dealing with people you don't maybe want to deal with. So I learned a lot about the right kinds of clients doing that. And then I pivoted from there into the web design stuff because I was already doing a lot of marketing advice. Clients were getting websites done. They were kind of crappy. And I was like, I could do a better job than that. Which first time probably I did not. Eventually I did. But yeah, that's kind of what pushed me into doing web design. And then that actually like exploded. That went super well. So that kind of got me on my path for this thing.
Awesome. So you kind of got thrust into that sales stuff and then had to learn how to do it and worked out you're pretty good at it by the sounds of it.
Yeah. I mean, I don't consider myself a salesperson. Which some people, they think that I'm really like outgoing and extroverted. I'm really introverted. I don't leave my house. Like we joke about it when we chat. Like I don't leave my house.
I'm the same. And everyone's like, oh, you must be so confident. It's like, dudes, I've got no idea what I'm doing.
Nope. I do not like to leave the house. I don't like to talk to people. I don't go to events because there's too many people. Like I don't like going to conferences. We were meant to meet like one time at WordCamp and I didn't go because I'm like, oh, there's too many people and I just don't feel comfortable.
I was talking and you didn't come along. What was with that?
Yeah, anyway? I actually felt so bad. So, I'm really introverted and like you have to learn how to work and how to sell and how to do all this stuff without like that being a factor. So
I think one of the things, it's sort of slightly off topic, but I think it's really important for everyone to know is that a lot of the stuff that we have to do for ourselves is really not natural. Like no one's born with these skills and we're all pretty shitty when we start this stuff and it's just a matter of practicing them and getting more and more comfortable with them and then they become less stressful, and you're better off doing it. Like when you start off, it doesn't matter if you're doing stuff like this, for example, like the audience is low when you're starting off, for yourself, the deals that you're trying to close are small. So it's like a good time to practice any of these skills, Anyway, so I've got another question.
Quick thing. Wait. Super quick thing. If anyone's actually watching this live, can you comment, say live or say something so we know like you're watching? Because I'm looking at it and I'm like, okay, no one's there.
Yeah.
Just comment, just so we know you like it's all real and it exists. That
I
would
don't
be
want to click.
helpful.
Oh, do I click play and see what happens?
Click play. No. It's like I'm watching it. It's just no one's commenting. So it's like, guys, comment. Anyway, so yeah, let's continue. There's
Oh
still no
yeah.
comments.
Richard said we're up live. There's a couple of comments there.
Oh, there we go.
I'm right here with you
You
guys from Robbie. Trisha saying
fantastic.
hello. There we go.
There we
Everyone's
go.
there. I've got a few
Thanks,
people.
guys. You make me
Yay.
happy.
So I did have
Maybe
another question.
the trick. Yep.
So like it's kind of what we're just talking about right then, that sort of stuff like sales isn't natural for most people. And it's probably, industry wise and across the board. But like, is there anything typical that you've seen with moving from, I guess, sales and other areas and into this industry? Have you ever, is there a common thread with the problems that people are having, as far as designers and developers with that sales stuff?
Yeah, look, the biggest one and the biggest thing people get wrong is they think that their job is to get this person that they're talking to give them money to do something for them. And it's not your job. When you're like trying to sell, it's not like, if it can be, but then you're stuck being like the freelancer who just takes orders. And it's like, hey, I want this, and cool, what color do you want? Okay, let me do it. And then you want to charge more. It's like, well, no, because that dude over there charges less. You have to do it at that price, and you're not doing anything to differentiate. If instead you're like, okay, my job is to see the problem these people have and try to solve that problem using my skills, if possible, then you find that you'll end up in a much stronger position. And that's kind of the big difference, is you like the mindset shift of, I'm not here to take their order and figure out like, and to like convince them to buy me. I'm here to try to solve the problem. I don't care if they want to buy or not. I'm going to tell them what the solution is, and that's the right solution no matter what. So, it's not like you're doing anything wrong if you do it that way. But sometimes when you try to convince people, it does feel like you're doing something wrong. You're trying to convince them. Like, that's manipulation. That's not the fun stuff. That's where you start feeling a bit shady sometimes. So it's like, oh, they really shouldn't have been a client. If instead it's like, okay, cool, what are you trying to achieve? Well, here's a solution for you. Well, what are you doing wrong? You're doing the right thing by them, by telling them what they need. And if it happens to be you, then that's great. And you can usually charge a bit more for it.
Yeah. I think almost like that, like you're saying, people, they almost like try and justify their way into jobs, or feel like they're trying to convince people that they need them. And I always think that it's like an interview both ways,
Yeah.
All right, cool. So this is a broad one, and general as well, but is there like, what's the biggest misconception with sales? We kind of was talking about some of that stuff then, but like, is there anything, what would you sort of say is that?
Well, that's kind of it, man. The biggest misconception is selling is convincing people to buy. So selling, like the actual selling, sales is a transaction. That's it. That's what sales is. So I think the process of selling is to make that transaction happen, but you have multiple ways you can go about it. And usually, like if you're like me and you're more of an introverted person and you're not someone who likes to lie, and you're not someone who likes to, it isn't about at all costs. Like, I need this to happen at all costs. If you're not like that, if you're like, no, I want to hold my head up high and do things the right way, then you don't have to do that whole, let me sell, let me convince, let me whatever, let me be a sleazeball. It's like, you can do things in a different way and it still works. It's just that a lot of if you start learning marketing, if you start learning sales, and you start learning this stuff from, depending on who you learn from, they're going to teach you different ways. And it's like, it's kind of looks like it's a really shady industry, and it's a really shady thing to be doing. And it kind of sours people. And that's why they struggle, because the natural instinct when they talk about sales is to like shudder and like be like, oh, sleazy. And it's like, no, that's not sales at all.
No. Yeah, and Robbie's written a comment here saying that it's like a good doctor, that you're asking questions to make sure you deliver the right results. I think that's really kind of part of it. For me, one of the things with that is almost like changing the way I used to think about money, and it's like you're saying, it's a transaction, and it's not like you do this stuff and you take money away from them. The way that I guess it works is that, like, it's the Blair End sort of idea. It's like the double thank you, that you do something for someone, and the way that they say thank you is they give you money. That's
Yeah.
their way of sort of saying,
You're like anytime someone's buying something, like you buy something, you get something for that.
yeah,
So like when a client comes to you for a service or for something, it's that they want to get something for their money.
yeah,
And your job is like to make sure that there's value in that and it's something that they value. The more they
yeah,
value it, the more money they're going to give you for it, if you know what you're doing.
yeah,
So yeah, that's kind of it, right? It's not like they're not doing charity by giving you money.
yeah,
They, like, yeah, and you're not doing charity by doing work for free or for like no money. Like you need to make sure you're getting paid effectively. Otherwise, there's no point doing it.
mm,
So yeah, it's a transaction between two parties.
yep. All right. So I know probably getting close to running through your actual little presentation, which you've thankfully put together for us, will be great. But if anyone is sort of listening before we do that, I just wanted to, for the people that are listening or the people that watch this back, what's the sort of one takeaway? If there was one thing that someone could get from watching this, what's a good takeaway? Strange question, but like
It'll probably be like the framework that I'm going to go through. But the big takeaway is stop like trying to convince people.
yeah,
Focus on solving their problem. Like if I go to a hardware store, I don't go to hardware stores often. When I do, it's because I need to do something at my house, and I've been told there's a part I need to do that. I don't want that part. I don't care about that part. I don't care about that tool. What I need is the thing that I'm doing. So if I'm like hanging a shelf on the wall and it's like you need this certain like drill size and I don't have it, then I'm getting that drill size. I don't need that drill size. I need the hole in the wall so I can hang the friggin' shelf. And really,
yeah,
what I need is the shelf hung. So
yep,
like, don't try to, don't worry about the drill bit. Worry about that shelf getting hung. Like that's your job, is to sit there and go, okay, cool. What are you doing and why are you doing it? And let's make sure that we have the right solution to do that, to make that
yeah,
happen.
yep,
If I went to that hardware store and I'm trying to hang that shelf and I need that hole in the wall, and I go there and go, cool, let me get a hammer and a nail, like,
yeah. That's
and I'm
right.
asking for it, they'll sell it to me, but that's dumb. Like, I'm not going to solve my problem. And so I'm going to be unsatisfied ultimately.
Yeah, you do a crappy job, you're going to end up not happy with the result. Whereas someone could say, actually, what are you trying to do? What are you trying to achieve here? And then once they work that out,
And the
they
person who
help
does
you.
that, they're the authority, and I listen to them and I respect what they have to say.
Yeah. All right. Did we want to? I guess I'm going to need to give you some
Yeah,
access so you can
make me host. Make me
make
host.
you host. You can run it.
The
There we go.
host with the most
Change host.
alcohol
All
in his
yours.
glass. All right. Let me share my screen. All right. So I've got this slideshow. All right. So basically, like I said, today I'm going to walk you through the sales meeting framework that I built up. Like this is the last probably decade or so, across multiple different businesses. And this is what allows me to get more clients, charge higher rates, and work with better quality people. And so by the end of this like presentation, hopefully you'll have a decent outline of how I run my sales meetings. And
Yep.
hopefully that's something that you can then implement aspects of to then improve your own sales meetings. So let's have a look. So what we're covering today, firstly, why people suck at sales. We're going to run through the different approaches you can take, the actual framework itself, and then we can do some questions and answers.
Cool.
All right. So who am I? So we've kind of got a bit of an intro. Look, I'm just a semi-normal dude. I said normal, but semi-normal. I run a fairly normal agency here in Sydney, Australia. I do consulting work for other agency owners. And
Yep.
probably the thing that I'm best at in my own agency is running the sales meeting, which is great because that's exactly what I'm going to teach you. So the way I sell is based on about 15 years worth of being in sort of salesy roles.
Yep.
All right, so let's get the party started.
Cool.
So sales. And it's an interesting, sometimes scary topic. And it's one of those words that are really loaded with a lot of preconceived ideas and preconceived notions of what it is. So if you think about it, right, like when someone says sales, you think sleazy, slimy, some slick talking salesman. They're trying to con you into parting with money for something you probably don't want or need. And what we don't really think that's what it is. Like it's one of those things that just always floats in the back of your mind. And so what
Yep.
happens when you, as a creative, need to go out and sell your services? Well, pressure. So here we go. So pressure. So you approach the meeting like it's your job is to convince, right? Which we already said is not the right move. So that means you need to be smooth, you need to be charismatic, you need to be really good at persuading. And you know what? That approach does work for a lot of people. The problem is I'm not all that charming. I'm not all that smooth. I'm not all that charismatic. I'm not all that good at persuading people, because if I have to persuade, I end up telling them not to worry about it. So despite the fact that I'm on a webinar right now as well, I am pretty introverted. So I don't like having people around me, and I'm pretty uncomfortable around people I don't know. And I'm willing to bet that the average web designer is probably going to be a lot more like me than the Wolf of Wall Street. But if I can turn around and sell stuff really well, despite being introverted and despite not wanting to actually talk to anyone, then I'm pretty sure other people can as well. And in fact, like the people I have taught this stuff to, one of them is going out and selling sites for like double or almost triple what I sell sites for, the same kinds of sites. So other people can do better than me.
Yep.
It's just I have a very good system. So let's have a look back at how I actually learned this stuff. So this is me pre-beard, not really. So this is where this is like where I learned everything. So basically, I'd gone from being an accountant that I mentioned to needing to sell accounting services, and I'd never done anything remotely salesy in my life.
Yep.
So there was an existing person there, and they were the person that was showing me the ropes, but it wasn't really working for me. So I couldn't talk to people the way they did, and it just wasn't going well. So in a meeting, I get nervous, I clam up, I just ramble, I forget everything that I was meant to say as part of the pitch. And then if they ask, can you do this? Can you do that? Like, I'll say yes. Like, yes, we can do your laundry as well. Like, no, it's dumb, right? And even after all that, I still wouldn't get a sale because they knew like this wasn't natural for me, and it was weird, and they got uncomfortable. And so I was about a month or so in, and I had 0 sales. And of course, I'm getting pressure from like the person training me and the boss. And you know what? I was looking for another job. Checked out, done. Like, me and sales are no go. And then one day, actually, let's make that more dramatic. So then one fateful day. So one day, the person who was training me didn't turn up, right? So they were sick or something. And that was the first time I'd actually been on my own. And so there were a couple sales meetings booked. And they're like, no, you can go on your own. You've been here long enough. See how you go, right? They're like, well, what's going to happen? Well, better you go and screw it up, and then we just cancel. Now, you got to remember, at this point, I decided I was done. I did not give a crap. I didn't care about sales. I didn't care about getting a sale. And so I just decided I'm just going to go into this meeting and just relax and talk to the people and find out what's going on. And so an interesting thing happened. Because I wasn't trying to sell, I was obviously relaxed. There was no pressure for me. And the people I was talking to, they opened up a lot more than the other meetings I've been in, like more than they did with the person who trains me, which is crazy. Yep. And so they told me what was going on and the problems they were facing with their accounting and why they called us. Now, don't forget, I was an accountant for like 6 or 7 years before this point. Like, I knew accounting. This was my thing. So like, I knew how to fix their problems. And so I just said, this is how we fix it. And then I was like, well, we can do this as well. And they're like, that's amazing. And so you never guess what happened. Well, you probably can, because I'm only talking about sales. Close the sale.
I can guess. Yep.
Close the sale. Second one, I closed the sale as well. Not immediately, like it took like a couple of weeks or whatever, but closed the sale. So that's 100% strike rate. And like, that's like, as soon as I stopped trying to sell, I was just talking to people. And so in that company, eventually, like, I became their top performing salesperson, smashed the person who was like training me. They left. And like, I was like just consistently like number one, you know, and so that company exploded. They eventually, the only reason why I stopped selling so well was when I became the sales manager and I trained other people to sell. Yep. And then obviously I wasn't doing sales. But there is 0 chance you would have predicted that based on the me that you would have seen in meetings, even the day before I got those 2 sales. The difference is I found a way to make it work for me. That was the big shift. Sorry. Keep on this. So someone smart once said, if you don't have a system to sell, you'll be at the mercy of your prospect's system to buy. And so what this means is, if you're not controlling the meeting, you're relying on however the person you're talking to wants to do things. And you know what? That is not going to work in your favor. And unfortunately, this is how many creatives end up working. They don't have a system to run their meetings. All the systems they come across don't work for them. It's all like, you know, you have to ask these specific questions in these specific orders, and it is very sales focused and very manipulative, and it kind of feels weird. And so they don't feel comfortable doing it, and they just can't make it work. And so they end up defaulting to the same mistakes. So what happens is they end up doing most of the talking. They say yes to anything they want, and they become like really desperate to get that sale. And if that's your system, you can say goodbye to your dreams of premium pricing, because you'll always be limited by what the market is willing to pay for your core service. And that's going to be dictated by whatever the competition charge, or whatever random quote from someone's nephew this person has got already. And of course, if you get the client, there's a really good chance they're not going to respect you as an expert at all. You're just an extra set of hands just to execute on what they say. Like, how many times have you been there and like, it's like, hey, can you do this? Can you do that? Can you do that? It's like, oh man, you're going to be stuck doing whatever they want, and no matter how terrible it is. And in the end, when it doesn't work because they're terrible and they're not designers, they're going to blame you because you're the professional. You're meant to make this work well. So so that's why you need a framework. Because rather than letting the prospect lead the meeting, you run it, right? Instead of waiting for them to realize how magically awesome you are, you follow the process and make that happen. And so the right framework helps you position yourself as a consultant, provide actual solutions to problems, help them understand the value in what you do, charge a lot more than you do now, and work with people who respect you. So that sounds pretty good. I mean, it sounds good to me.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah. And so that leads us to the mindset that you need to have before you even go into the meetings. And I kind of hinted at this already. And I don't mean this to be fluffy, but mindset is probably the most important thing to get right. I've had people go through the course and just finish module 1, which is about mindset, and tell me that's completely changed the game for them. And that they're now closing deals quicker, better, easier, right? Which is freaking nuts to me. Like, because I've always been like, mindset is fluffy as like, it's just crap, but it's not.
No, it's not. No, mindset's everything.
So here's the mindset shift. You're not there to convince them to buy your stuff. You're there to help them find a solution to their problem. So instead of trying to convince them to buy, start trying to help instead. There's a quote from famous guy, Nick Gulic, who is me. Now, you might have noticed earlier that this talk is subtitled a website consultant's framework for better sales meetings, or something like that. I can't remember what I wrote. But that's because I'm not really a web designer. I don't sell websites. I'm a consultant. I solve problems. And even when the solution is a website, I'm selling the solution to the problem, not a website. And so when your client sees you as the person who's going to solve a problem for them, they stop seeing you as some freelancer who's there to follow orders. Instead, they see you as an expert. You're there to help them achieve something that matters. And that achieving something that matters, that's worth a lot more to them than a website or SEO or copywriting or a brochure or whatever it is that you do. So let's get into this framework. Now, I'm going
to quickly summarize a couple of things, though. There's a lot of stuff going on.
Sure,
one thing I want to sort of, I love the fact that you've sort of called it out and said that the typical sort of sales stuff actually works, right? Like that stuff that we think, the car salesman, the Wolf of Wall Street stuff, that it works. But then, like you said, it doesn't work for everyone. Well, it doesn't matter if it's scummy, if that's your job. But what you're saying is it doesn't work for everyone. And I think that's why this stuff's really refreshing, because it's sort of saying, look, you don't have to actually think this certain way or behave a certain way to actually, make sales happen and happen efficiently. So that's really, really good. Another thing that you're sort of talking about, and it came up in my mind, is when you sort of learn a script, and this is like an actual framework, right? The good thing with this, if you've learned a script, someone's teaching you the things to say, the questions to ask, and if you fall off of that script, you're kind of doomed. But this is from, everything that I've learned from this course so far, it's actually a framework and it's a process. So there's no actual say this when this happens. It's actually steps and ways of thinking and an actual framework to work within. So there's no say this, do this, which is probably where this is really, really helpful.
Well, and see, even that, right? That whole say this, do this, say this at this point, and these are the questions to ask in order. That is a system. That's what I'm saying. Systems work. You need a system. Yes. That is a system. It does work. But like you said, it doesn't work for everyone. Or like I said, maybe it doesn't work for everyone. It isn't something that a lot of people can do and feel happy about themselves. It is hard. Like I've done cold calling. Like I did cold calling for like a few months, and like I did very, very well. And I was like, I fucking hate this. It's the worst thing to do in like the world. And so I just said to the boss, I said, if you want me to quit, I'll keep doing cold calling. So I'm going to be finding another job. Or if you want, hire someone, I'll train them how to do cold calling, and then they can be a cold caller. And so that's what we did instead. And like, it's funny because at the start, obviously the same deal. They weren't getting that many sales, but they ended up, their personality worked with it. They stuck with it. And like, it was like a year or two later. And then one of the second businesses that we launched ended up being a $5 million business within like 2 years. It was friggin' nuts.
Wow.
And that was from cold calling. So it, like, all these things can work. It's just, is it going to work for you? And do you want to do it? Are you happy doing that with yourself?
Yeah.
So yeah.
So that's what this is. It's like that alternative. If you're not comfortable with being that person, this is an actual way of
like if you're going out and doing online courses and they're like all the, like, he's how to market, you know, make your 7 figures as a web developer or whatever, and you're like, I can't do any of this shit. This is fucking terrible for me. Sorry for language. Then like, this is an alternative that's like, because I was the same. Like, I'm not going to do that. Like, I'm not going to do things that way. I'm not going to, that's a load of crap. Like, yes, your skills do matter, dude. Like, that's one of the worst things in a lot of the online courses. It's like, no, your skills don't actually matter. Yeah, they do. They totally do. The better your skills are, the more you can charge. The more justified you are in solving problems. Anyway, should we go on?
Let's keep going. Let's get into it.
All right. So again, this isn't something I've just made up. I've been selling services for the past 15 years. I've trained other people. I've trained sales teams. I've traveled interstate to do that, to run sales training. So it is something that I do. And one of the constant things that I found with all the meetings I've always done the best at is that they've gone through 3 distinct phases. So firstly, we have a period of understanding. And so this is where I listen to them. And it's like, I can kind of understand the client. I can understand their problem. I can understand what they're trying to achieve. Then I go through a period of education. This is where I do a bit more talking. And so I'll educate them on the reality of their problem, like what's really going on, why they failed in fixing it previously, or what people do to, like, you know, that is wrong in trying to fix it. And then what the solution actually is. And then finally, I close things out by explaining how I fix the problem. And then I answer any questions they have and I give them next steps. I mean, you could really call it education as well. I call it close because it's how we close the meeting, close the deal. So phase 1, all right, let's kick this off. Understanding. So you can imagine the meeting started, we've gotten greetings out of the way, built some rapport, talked to them, whatever, you're just having a conversation. And we're starting to get down to business. And so as part of the understanding phase, there are 3 things that we really need to understand. So firstly, we need to understand their current situation. Where are they at now? Then we need to know the problem that they're facing and what the impact is of that problem. So like, why is it a problem? And then finally, we want to know what they want. Like, what are their goals in working with you? What do they want to achieve by having this solution that you're going to be putting in place? Now, in most cases, people are pretty happy. They're happy for you to do your thing and run your meeting. But sometimes you might get a prospect that wants to take control. And so they'll like start asking questions right from the get-go, or they do something really offensive, like, so tell me, why should I hire you? Or tell me what you can do for me. And you know what? That's their system to buy. But we don't play that. Like, that's not how we want to do things, right? It doesn't work for us. So instead of playing their game, what we do is we flip things around. And so we get control. And it's actually something that a lot of people struggle with, is how do you get control of a meeting? And so if you think about it, generally speaking, control is with the person who's asking the questions. And so if you ask questions, it means the other person's answering, and the person asking gets to control the flow. And so one of the easiest ways that you can get control of a meeting in a natural way is to ask. Like, ask them if you can have control, right? And the questions, like, it's usually something like, in order to be able to see what we can do for you, I'll need to ask you some questions. Is that okay? And in most cases, everyone's like, oh yeah, cool, right? Why? Because, hey man, you're the expert in this, I'm not. So you're already establishing that relationship. And like, it works in most cases. I've had a few people argue, and in each case, it was just, they just wanted a cheap price. They didn't want to answer any questions. Like, no, just tell me how much. That's all I care about right now. So obviously the people who only want price, not the right people for me. They want a commodity. They don't value what I'm doing. I don't play in the commodity space. And look, that's a pro tip. Don't play in the commodity game, because even if you win, you lose.
Yeah. But what you've highlighted there too is, if someone, you know, what that red flag is showing you there is that that person's behavior in wanting to take control is showing that they're not willing to see you as the authority. Someone that's allowing you to take that control when you say, I need to do this to discover this. A reasonable person, they're going to an expert. That's what they're expecting. And that they want someone to take their hand. They're like,
take control, dude. Like, man, I came to you, like, do your thing.
You know what you're doing, you do it.
Yeah. And think about this, right? Someone who won't let you take control of a meeting, what are they going to be like when you're trying to do your job?
Like, it's the worst.
Yeah. And I've done this before. Like, this is a mistake I've made. And there's a mistake a lot of people have made.
I've made it.
Anyone who's not worked in any creative space has worked with a client who hasn't let them be the expert. Like, the client thinks that they know what they're doing. I once sat there for like an hour changing the colors on a hero banner, color combinations on a hero banner, live with the client, only to end up with the first option that I had. They're like, actually, that is the best option. Like, I know, because that's what I do for a living. Like, it was the biggest nightmare. They wanted me to redesign their site and like at a future date. And I said no, because nope, not going to happen.
Yep.
Right. So where are we at?
Taking control in the meeting.
Process, right? We've got control. Hey, we can go through our process. Yay.
Yep.
All right. So first thing that we're going to talk about is them, right? Them and their business. So it's a situation. And so there's some questions we're probably going to go through, and they're pretty basic. Tell me what you do. How long have you been running this business? How'd you start? How'd you get to where you are now? What sort of clients do you normally work with? Very important for B2B. What sort of services do you offer? How do you get your clients, or how do they find you, or how do they become clients? So on and so forth. You just keep digging, right? So, and depends on what you're interested in and what you need to know, you dig deeper and deeper and deeper. And the objective is to get them to open up. Because if you think about it, what are people usually, what's a topic that they know and that they can talk about? Themselves, right?
Yeah.
Like, and you know, the average person, like, who's in business, who's doing their business, they usually love what they do. They love their business. That's why they started it. But they don't really have many opportunities to talk about it without being super freaking annoying to everyone around them. Like, dude, I can't sit there and talk to my wife that much about business because she doesn't really care that much. It's like, it's not like there's nothing to relate it to. So I don't get that many opportunities to talk about my business and what I'm doing. So if I get a chance, that's great. And I'll have a lot of ammo to use. So if you let them talk about their business, you're making them feel more comfortable, and you're getting information that you need to understand the problem, because you can't understand the problem without context.
Yep.
So now we understand the situation. Fantastic. Let's have a look at the problem they're facing. And this is really fluid, right? Because you don't know what they're going to say. Sometimes it'll be the same thing every time. And sometimes people will go absolutely crazy with why there's an issue, right? So it's like, usually I'll just say something like, what made you decide you need a new website? And then based on their answers, I just keep digging. They'll say something like, oh, well, I want to get more leads. Okay, why? Oh, well, because if I have more leads, I get more money. Why? Like, why is that important? So I try to figure out the root of the problem, and the impact of the problem. So it's like, if they're not getting enough leads, what does that mean? How many are they getting? Like, how many leads do they normally need before they get a sale? That's important. It's like, cool, you want a lead. If you get one more, does it make a difference? Well, not really. Not if you close 1 in 10.
Yeah.
And what's the sale worth? Like, because that's important to know. It's like, well, if you need 10 more leads to get one sale, but one sale is worth $1 million. All right, sweet. Those 10 leads are worth quite a bit, because like, it's $1 million that you can get out of those, 10 leads.
Yep. So 10 leads, you divide it by 10.
Yeah.
Each lead is worth eventually like $100,000 essentially.
Right. And importantly, why is this a problem now? So what's changed? What made them decide now? And if people can't answer that, that's a real, like, it's a worry sign for me. It's like, what made you decide now? Like, there's got to be a trigger that made you decide now. And that's really good to know, because you find some sense of urgency around them fixing things, which is pretty useful. So now, without understanding the problem and without understanding the impact of the problem, how do you know if you can fix anything, or if it's even worth fixing things? Like, if there's no problem, like, why change anything? And see, that's the thing, right? Like, you have to be prepared that sometimes people don't need you. And I know you want the sale, but don't be a desperate piece of crap. Focus on helping the person. right? If they don't need you, they don't need you. That's it. So where are we at? Okay, next up, objective. So we understand their business now. We understand the problem they're facing. So what do they actually want to happen? What do they want to achieve? They might have approached you for a website, but what do they want that website to do? Because here's the thing, right? Like I was saying, when they're going to the hardware store, no one actually wants a website. What they want is what that website is meant to give them. They don't want a website. They want leads, or they want authority, or they want something. So you need to find out what they want. And then you find out if the website is actually going to be able to deliver that result. Like someone who's starting out and wants to make $1 million and thinks the website's going to do it, they're on smack, because it's like, no, the website alone is not. How are you going to market yourself? Like the website needs to fit in with your marketing strategy. So like you need to figure out, like, is this going to actually solve their problem? Because that's what leads to other solutions. It leads to, yes, this is the right solution. You feeling confident about it, them understanding, them not getting really annoyed with you later when like they're expecting this website to make them $1 million and it doesn't. So you need to find this stuff out. Like, what are the objectives? What do they want to achieve? And you know what difference would that make? Like, that's the point of it all, right? So like, let's say they ultimately do want more sales. Well, how much more? And if you didn't already find out, like, how much is a client worth? How many clients will it take for them to reach that extra sales that they're targeting? Because if you can get this back to numbers, it does make your life a lot easier, because then you can start to identify the value in what you're doing. Like if someone tries to make $1 million a year, well, how much is a website worth that helps them achieve that? Like probably not 1 million, but like probably not $1,000. Like it's going to be more than $1,000. So like that really helps you with the comparison of what they're getting and the value of what you're doing.
Simple tip for anyone that really doesn't know how to price stuff. If you can get an idea of what people are suggesting they're going to get in return of something, a really nice basic place to start with that is about 10%.
Yep.
So if someone's going to say, like, if they're going to make $500,000 or even $100,000, then charging them $500 for a logo is not enough. It should be around 10%. You can argue more and less, but that's a good starting point to sort of get this stuff into,
So what is the impact of the solution? And if the solution has an impact, well, then a percentage of that impact is a great base point. 10% is usually what I aim for as a base point. Sometimes I do go higher. Sometimes I go less. If that 10% is going to be huge and I don't really need that much, I'm not, like I'm comfortable like charging less. I mean, and like, so you can help them see this as well, right? So you understanding it isn't necessarily them understanding it. So you need to kind of repeat it to them. So it's like, so what you're saying is you need this website to generate an extra $100,000 in sales for you each year, which takes your total to just over $1 million a year. So then they're like, oh crap, yeah, this is some big money we're talking about, right? Like it puts it into perspective.
Yep.
And at this point, hopefully we have a solid understanding of the client. We know their problem. We know the impact it has. We understand their objectives and how much those objectives are worth. But before moving on, it's really important to clarify everything. And so, did you actually understand? Right? And the easiest way to do that is to ask. Same as everything else, right? We're asking questions. Like this isn't like you don't need to tell people stuff. You ask. So before I move on, I just want to make sure that I've understood everything. And then you give them a summary version of what you just went through. And if you're right about everything, if they say, yeah, that's right, great, you get to move on. And if not, if you missed something or you misunderstood something, well, you get to rectify that before you move on. Because imagine wasting the rest of the meeting talking about stuff that is irrelevant and isn't correct, right? What a waste. Now you might notice so far we haven't talked about ourselves and what we do at all. It's 100% about them. There's no bragging, there's no showing off, there's no telling them how wonderful we are. There's no pressure on us to be amazing. All we're doing is having a conversation and just asking questions. We're listening and we're showing them that we understand. Right? And that leads us then to the next section, which is education. Now, this happens similarly across 3 key areas. So firstly, we talk about the real problem that they're having, and it might not even be what they were originally thinking. Secondly, we look at usually like why previous solutions failed, or sometimes we go into the whole like industry myths and industry mistakes, like common industry issues. And then finally, we make a recommendation. So what do they actually need in order to solve their problem? Now, first part of this phase, I guess, is letting them know the real problem they're facing. Now, in my case, they might say that, oh, like the website looks like crap and it's not connecting to the clients. But that might not be the case. It might be that actually the website type is wrong. They might be running ads and the website might not be a high converting, they might not be a high converting design.
Yep.
Or it could be, they could be doing SEO and like it's not the right kind of site for SEO. So you need to discover what this is for your specific industry, your specific client types, and your specific services. And so when you start going through this process with them and you explain exactly what the real problem is, it's like this light bulb goes off, like, you know, like the cartoons, ding, like they have an idea. And these light bulbs going off, they're like the currency for you. And so the more light bulbs they have, the more they see you as the expert who's giving them the light bulbs, and the more they want to work with you. Like it hits a point where they're like, unless you completely fuck this up, you've got the sale. Right? Yep. Unless you're completely crazy overpriced, or unless you completely drop the ball, you've got the sale because you've just like built up so much currency in light bulbs.
The best thing with that too is you can actually see it. You can actually, it's, you know, they do have it in a cartoon like this, bing, but it literally
look
does
at the
happen.
expression.
You can see it.
The expression,
and people will sometimes actually say, they'll make noises around it. They'll be like, "Oh my god, right? Like I had no idea this is what it was about."
Yeah, man.
You get some of those, you're on the right track. Your job is done.
Yep, definitely.
Yep.
So next part. So why previous solutions failed? Now this is where you let them know why things went wrong for them before. Like why isn't their current thing working? And when you do this, the reason why you do this is really important. The reason why you're doing this is because you're showing them that you know enough not to make the same mistake. Right? Yep. You know enough to show why other people are doing wrong, like what they're doing wrong. That's like an expert, man. You know, like, you know, if I look at something and go, well, that's amazing, that should be working, and it's not, then who the hell am I? Like, how am I going to deliver a better outcome? But if I say, well, look, the reason why it's not working is because like it's a nice enough design, but blah, 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 blah. And it's like, oh, cool. Well, this guy's pretty smart. He knows stuff. Right. And this needs to be directly tied to the real problem that they have. So the reason why their last website failed was because it wasn't designed for their target audience. And so they only get contacted by poor quality leads. The reason why the last website failed is because it had an overwhelming quantity of information. So visitors wouldn't need to even make an inquiry. Because that's a thing. Like lead gen site, like people looking for info, it's like it needs to be enough to kind of give them a bit, but not everything where they don't need to call. So if you want to make inquiries, like you can't give too much away. And so whatever the reason the last service failed was because of whatever. And so you'll probably have a good idea about this already going into the conversation, but because we've already explained everything, like we've just explained their real problem and we know what they're trying to achieve, we get to make it much more compelling by linking the two. So we can show them how the mistakes impact on the things that they care about. And as part of this process, you need to educate the client on why these things make a difference. So like, how does designing for the target audience get more conversions? Like, it seems like logical, but it's not to them. They don't understand. They don't understand the difference.
Yep.
Now, of course, like how deep you go, well, that depends on your skills and your experience. And now you don't need to be an industry leader, right, to educate a client. You do need to know more than they do, though, and you need to know enough to understand why things didn't work before, or why they might not work generally. If you're looking at something and you can't figure out why it's not working, you're like, this should be working, maybe you shouldn't be the one taking this client on, and you should refer it on to someone who is at a higher level. Like, sorry, that's like kind of cold, hard truth. And that's one thing that people don't like to hear, but it's true, right? Like if you can't help the client, don't take them on. You're going to really regret it. And so will they.
Yeah. I think one of the things, I'm going to interrupt again, but I think one of the things with this, what's really great with the way that this works is it really is for people that have some of these skills. Like it's not like it isn't a trick, because what you're doing is actually helping inform people about the things that you do know. So it's for professionals. It's helping them teach people some of the things that they would see. And it sounds like, you know, I think the thing with that is that we can all look at the work that we do, you know, an hour later, 2 days later, a week later, 6 months later, and pick faults at it. So it's not that hard to do that with someone else's work.
Easy.
Just by following your own principles and your own, knowledge in the industry and your services that you offer.
Yeah, that's right. Now, there is a balance, of course, that needs to be struck, right? So you don't need to overwhelm with info. And it's really important, right? You just need to touch on it a little bit. You need to give them just enough for them to have one of those light bulb moments, but not so much they fall asleep or zone out or they feel like you're lecturing them. Because that's a risk, right? You really don't want to come across like you're lecturing, because then they don't want to work with you because you're annoying, right? You just want to teach them something. And the education that helps you position yourself as an authority in your space. And also, it means that you're someone who can explain things in their language. Like, you can understand the problem and you can explain it in a way that they're going to understand and it makes sense to them. Doesn't that mean it's also pretty likely that you're going to be able to solve the problem? Like, yeah.
Yep.
And this leads us very nicely to the next part, which is our recommendations. And so this is where you run them through what they really need. So if they are there to get a website, well, what does that website need to have to achieve the result they're looking for? Are there certain features it should have or certain style? And this part is really, really easy, because all you're doing is just using the opposites of the reason it didn't work last time. So like, I want to stress, for example, if that they want more leads, you're not asking about things like what colors they want for the site, right? You're the expert. You'd be telling them what colors they need in order to attract their target audience.
Mm-hmm.
If you get caught in listening to things that they want, their wish list, you're starting to lose that like expertise and that authority. You're losing your position. So avoid that. Your job is to let them know this is what you need, and then shut down requests as much as you can. So now this might seem like a really long-winded way to ultimately tell someone, for me to tell someone that they need a website. But like, I'm not telling them they need a website. I'm telling them that they need a website built in a certain way that includes specific things in order to solve their specific problem. And that's the key. Solving the problem. Solving the problem, that's worth money. I mean, we even figured how much it's worth in the first phase, where we talked about the impact of the problem they're having now and their objectives and what they're worth. And I can promise that not many people can actually educate their clients very well. And so if you take the time to do this and you do it right, you get to stand out from your competition. Well, much of your competition, because guess what? You're not the only person who knows what they're doing, right? There's a lot of people who know what they're doing. But a lot of people who know what they're doing don't know how to structure their sales meetings effectively. So if you know what you're doing and you know how to structure your sales meetings, generally you do pretty well.
Yep.
Now, at that point, you can charge a lot more than everyone else, because you're no longer offering a basic service. You're not selling the commodity. You're not selling a website. You're a problem solver. You're a digital whatever. You give yourself a fancy title and it's okay because you make shit happen. And hopefully the solution they need does involve your service offering. But hey, you know what? It might not, and that's okay. You're much better off telling people that they don't need you and then pointing them in the direction of what they really do need, rather than taking their money and delivering something that won't make a difference. See, that's a bad option. That's a sleazy option. That's the stuff that when all people care about is the sales. Now, people who are willing to do that, they're better off going and getting comfortable with the script-based selling, right? Where it's like, there is a process. It is a little bit, it can feel manipulative. They're better off getting comfortable with that and doing that, because ultimately they're going to do shady crap anyway. Right? Helping is the most important thing you can do in this situation, and probably in most situations. You're a service provider. Helping others helps your reputation. And in my experience, doing the right thing by people, by leads who aren't a good fit, usually ends up getting you better clients who are. Number one, you're not wasting time with them. And number two, like, there is good potential for them to say good things about you to other people, especially if you're someone who works in a local area and does meet local leads fairly frequently. Like, when you have a good reputation in your local area, you never know who some small lead knows. They could know some, like in my case, someone who ran like a national law firm, and you got an introduction from someone who you rejected because they were too small and had no idea what they were doing. Crazy.
Yep.
So, and also, good karma is never a bad thing. All right, so we're hitting the final part of the meeting, right? So here, solutions equal money. So final part of the meeting, and it's closing. Now, don't panic. Don't let the name scare you or anything like that. This isn't always be closing or any of that crap, right? This is just simply closing the meeting, closing the deal. Like, it's how you finish things. So you could call this education part 2, but that sounds dumb and isn't brandable. So close it is. So up until now, everything has been 100% about the lead. We did talk a bit more, but it was all tied to them and their problem and their solution and everything that they need. But now we're going to start talking about ourselves a little bit more. And so similar to previous phases, we go through 3 parts. Firstly, we go through the logistics of the solution and how much it's going to cost them. So how does this work and how much they pay? Right? I'm going to tell them how much they're going to pay in the meeting. Yes, of course I am. I don't want them to get surprised when they get a proposal later, and it's way more than they expected. I want to tell them how much it is, and I want them to tell me it's a problem, because then I go to objection handling and I can answer their questions and resolve the issue so they understand why it's worth the money. Right? And then finally, I tell them the next steps in having us work together. So logistics. How will you actually do this? Right? And this is your time to shine. This is where you go through your process. Does it go through phases? What are they? How long does everything take? How many people are involved? How often do you communicate? How does communication work? And so all we do is we explain the steps that you take to ensure that you're delivering at high quality and why those steps are relevant, which is really important. Right? Because you don't want to say, well, can you skip that step and it still work? Well, no, it's not going to friggin' work, man. You want a solution? This is how the solution works. Right? So we're showing the client that this is more than them just going out and buying a commodity or buying something off the shelf. There's a specific process that you go through to deliver real results. And as a tip, the more unique and the more in-depth your process is, the more likely you are to stand ahead of your competitors. Now, once they're comfortable with the process you follow, then we let them know how much they need to invest for you to follow that process and help them achieve the result. And yes, I did say invest because that's like a wanky marketing thing to do, but it is an investment, right? They are investing. Like, we aren't giving them something they're not going to make a return on. We're solving problems. That problem's worth something. So it is an investment. Now, the way you structure this, the way you say this, could be as simple as, look, to do all of this and to deliver a site that will achieve the results we spoke about earlier, I would be looking at an investment of around X, right? That could be 10 grand, 20 grand, 50 grand, 3 grand, $500, whatever it is that you're comfortable with. Will that be a problem for you? Now, in my experience, if you've run through everything properly, more often than not, the price isn't really an issue. But sometimes when you reveal the price, you do get a little bit of pushback. Now, I mean, they should understand the value of what you're doing, and they can see you know what you're doing and can deliver them the result. And that's the main thing they care about. And the issue is usually the price is just higher than they expected. And that's completely okay, right? They have a perception of what it should be, and it's bigger than that, which is fine. So if they push back on price or they raise another issue or reason why they shouldn't be doing something with you, then your job is just to take those excuses away. Is there something you wanted to say, Corey?
No.
No, cool. I was looking like, oh, it looks like he wants to jump in. So, okay. So look, excuses, right? Objections are excuses. Let's look at that. So objection handling is basically taking away all their excuses not to buy. Now, it's assuming it is a good fit, right? Assuming that you want to work with them, you know you can solve their problem, and it's going to be worthwhile for them, they're going to make money, then why the hell would they not buy it? Why the hell would they not go with you to do the thing? Right? So let's say price. Right? They say, oh wow, that's too much, or that's a lot, or whatever. Like, and seriously, it is like the most common one. And they'll say something like, oh, I wasn't expecting it to be that much, or it's a lot more than the last person charged. And so all that means is just you're higher than they were expecting. They went in with an expectation and your price is higher. They're not saying they don't want to do business with you. They just, they were expecting a lower amount. Now, I have to stress that you do not lower your price here. You just need to handle the objection. And the best way to do this is to ask them why it's expensive, or why they think it's expensive, what they were expecting it to be and why. So it's like, and then they'll tell you, and it's like, look, I can imagine that this might seem like a lot, especially compared to the previous website you had built. But to go through our process properly and do the level of work we need in order to achieve the results you want, that's how much we need to charge.
Yeah.
Sorry.
This kind of sort of comes back to the mindset stuff, right? It's the very first part of this stuff. And it's really that the people are ringing you up or getting in contact with you. And that shows that there's something that you're doing that's attracting them. If they worked with someone before, for example, and they were cheaper, well, there's a reason they're not on the phone to them right now. So you can always channel into that and know that in yourself.
Don't steal my presentation, bro. No, literally, like, so if they've compared you with a previous solution that didn't work, it gets super easy, right? It's super easy. Well, the main reason we're talking is because your previous solution isn't working or wasn't working for you or it wasn't delivering the outcome you wanted. Now, I would expect that the working solution is going to require more investment than the non-working one. And so I would be very surprised if we weren't significantly higher. And the question for you is it worth paying more to get the result you want? And then just wait for them to answer. Right? It's like, well, yeah, I see your point. I see where you're coming from. I understand. Now, don't forget, is what Corey said. There's a reason why they're talking to you. And you know what? Like, I'm not going to be arrogant enough to think that it's like my marketing is so amazing that I look like some expert and they already know I'm an authority. It could just be that someone mentioned me, right? But there's a reason why they're talking to me instead of the former person or instead of someone else or someone who's like worse, right? Whether it's a referral, whether it's something else, something made me more appealing to them than someone else. And if you've done your job with the meeting, then they understand that you are very well positioned to fix these problems. You and now they both have a good understanding of what the problem is worth to fix. So they probably want to work with you, right? It's just part of their brain is wired to avoid risk. Doesn't want to spend money. It's thinking of worst case scenarios, right? So your job now is to satisfy that part of the brain. You handle any issues that they raise, like pricing or timeframes or your process, like questions or anything they ask about or mention. You take away any and all excuses they have not to go ahead until they don't have any left. And this can be super uncomfortable because, like, you know, like, you don't want to know, like, no, don't tell me any reason why you're not going to buy. No, like, find out now so you can answer it. Like, you don't want to find out later when they don't sign the proposal.
Yeah.
Right? And if you're in doubt or if they haven't even raised any concerns, you're like, yeah, cool, ask. Right? It's really important to ask. Do you see anything that would prevent you from moving forward with what I'm recommending? So either they're going to say, no, I think it's great. Then that means they're probably going to go ahead, right? Or they're going to give you an objection. Oh, it's like, well, I have to discuss it with my business partner. Crap. That's usually no. So, and there's ways to handle that anyway. So
that's what I want to know.
Yeah, I can.
No, keep going.
So, so either they say yes or they give you more objections, right? That's it. And so once you've got it all handled, then you get to move on and go to the next steps. So next steps, this is where you get to tell them what happens next. This is how you guys work together. Like, you just lay out each step and just make it really easy to move forward. Right? So are you going to send a proposal? Tell them, I'm going to send you a proposal. Tell them when. What do they need to do with that proposal? Do they need to pay any money? Like, how much do they need to pay? Is it a percentage? Is it the whole thing? Like, how does that work? And then what happens after they do that? Right? It's pretty easy. And that's the key to finishing strong. You just need to make it super easy for them to do all this stuff, right? To move forward. So let's recap what we covered. So we use a system to sell so we can run our meeting in a way that's going to help us get the information we need from the prospect. By focusing on delivering a solution rather than convincing them to buy from us, we not only... Hang on one sec. I'm getting a little interruption.
Hey.
Here we go.
Hello.
Say hello.
Hello.
Okay, can you go to Mummy, please?
Could she can run the rest of this?
Yeah, she can run the rest. It's so easy, a baby could do it. Just hang on one sec.
Technical difficulties. Look at this. That's great.
There we go. So that's my daughter. She's lovely. But Mum got distracted as she ran into the room. All right. So where were we? All right. So by focusing on delivering a solution rather than convincing them to buy, right? That's what we're doing, right? So we're delivering a solution rather than convincing them to buy from us.
Yep.
So not only are we helping the prospect, and not only are we positioning ourselves as experts and we get to potentially charge based on value, we're taking away a buttload of pressure in like trying to do things that aren't natural to us. Now, the meeting itself, 3 phases. First, understand the prospective client, their situation, their problem, desired outcomes. Then educate them about the real problem they're facing, why things went wrong previously, and we make our recommendation for a solution. And then we get to close out the meeting by running through the logistics of the solution, giving them a price, handling any questions or objections they have, and then guiding them through the next steps. Now, by following this framework, I'm pretty sure you'll get a better result from your sales meetings, and you'll be able to charge more and work with clients who treat you like an expert. And ultimately, it wasn't because you sold to them or you did anything sleazy. You did it by helping. You listened, you educated, and that makes all the difference. So, thanks everyone for listening. I'm kind of done. I hope you got something useful out of this. And if anyone has any questions, now's a great time to ask. And if you want to run through any scenarios, I'm happy to wing whatever we want to wing. Right?
Yep.
Stop this share.
If anyone has questions, yeah, chuck them in now. I'm going to see if I can actually get to the chat and find this stuff in case anyone is asking questions. Here we go. I think Rich has got a question. Okay, this is one here. So how do you apply the problem phase to a new business who may not have or know what their problems are, i.e. someone who's looking for a new site or brand, for example?
Well, okay, so what's the problem? Like, what is the problem? Like, well, okay, my problem is I don't have a website. Why do you need a website? Like, why are you talking to me? Well, I need a new website. Why? Well, because I'm starting a new business. Okay. And so how's the website going to help you start your new business? I get people like that. Like where I'm positioned, where my office is positioned, there are a lot of people starting out very small, like micro businesses. I don't build their websites because most of them don't need a website. They need some clients. And a lot of the times the website isn't going to get them clients based on them spending $0 in marketing. Right. So the problem they're facing is like they're coming to you for a website, but why do they want the website?
Yeah.
And that's the problem. And it's like, well, I'm a new business. I don't have a website. So how do you think the website's going to help you? Well, it's going to get me clients. No. What marketing will you do alongside the website? Oh, well, none. Okay. Do you know who your clients are? No. It's like, so in that case, I'm not recommending a website. I'm recommending a discovery session if they have the budget for it. And if they don't, like, because if they're like most startups, it's like, well, I'm starting out, I've got $2,000 saved for this. It's like, well, I'm not going to take you $2,000 and tell you a plan that you're not going to be able to execute. I'm going to tell you to go and DIY, pick a template from like Squarespace or something. Don't touch the template, just put your words in. If you need to do that, go out and get clients in person. And here's the way you can go out and get clients. Like that's, come back to me in like 5 years when you're successful and you've paid 3 other people to build your websites and you want to then go next level, then we should talk.
It's actually a really, really good tactic to help people understand that they might not be at the right time yet, or that, that what they want you to do is something that they should be doing, but not right now.
Yeah.
And to invest in things and wait. There's no point chucking like $2,000 at a website. Like your $2,000 would be better spent on this, and that'll give you the budget to really invest in a proper website.
One thing is maybe your service is reasonably priced and is well structured for people starting out. You might have a solution for that. I don't, right? Like someone who's starting out, unless they're venture back, they're not spending $10,000, $15,000, $20,000 on a website for a brochure site. Like, no. But like someone who's spending like, a couple of grand, you might have a solution that fits for them, right? Yeah. Like they're not going to be the premium solution people, but you might have an entry level solution that will fit. So you can recommend that if it's going to solve their problem. And that's the big thing, right? Is you need to understand what problem they're trying to solve with this website. And if it's a startup, the problem is going to be different to someone who's been established for 5-6 years, who really understands their target audience and whatever. Maybe you need to be talking to them a bit more about like identifying who their target audience is and stuff like that.
Yep.
So yeah.
I think the other thing too with that as well, like if you're running through this process, like Richard's sort of saying, like in that problem phase, what happens if people don't know? But if you're asking the questions, that they will tell you, like it's the answers they give you are that are the answers, like what you ask, and then
Well, they tell you what they need. Like they tell you what their problem is. They don't tell you straight away. Like they don't tell you, they don't volunteer it usually the right answer that you're looking for. They need to be guided to the right answer. So it's like if you ask someone, how are you? And they're good. Like, what's your default? Like, good. Yeah, I'm good. It's like, yeah, like, but how are you? And like, yeah, I'm good, man. Like they'll be like, you're a bit weird. And like, no, how are you? And they're like, well, actually, man, my knee hurts and I slept weird last night. Then you say, hey, like I asked you the same question 3 times. And the question you gave me at the start versus the answer you gave me at the start versus the answer you gave me at the end is very different.
Yeah.
And so people don't naturally open up about stuff. And a lot of times they don't even think, like when in these situations, they're not thinking, like they're coming to you in their head, like I'm coming to order a website, and you're trying to shift the paradigm to be, no, you're not coming to order a website. You're coming to solve a problem. What's the problem that you're trying to solve? And it's like, oh, but I want a website. No. What's the problem you're trying to solve? Well, like I need a good website. No. Like, why do you need a website? Oh, well, like, I'm starting out. I need this. Well, how does it help? And like, so you keep digging and digging and digging. And so it is about asking questions, and that, that can be uncomfortable sometimes, like asking more questions. But when you've got in your head, like the only way I can solve the problem is by getting a little bit uncomfortable with them and asking them a question that I know, like they're going to like, huh? What do you mean? Like, but if you can get past that, like I'll tell you now, like as soon as you get past that, they're like, oh, this person's a pro. So if you stop there, you're not a pro. Like you don't look like a pro. It's like you're just a weirdo, like you ask weird questions. But if you can push past that to the actual, like, oh, well, here's actually what I need. And like, cool. And then you can take that and run with it. Then they're like, holy crap, this person's a pro.
Yeah. I mean, if the answer that they ask is lightweight, and they always start simple. That's what you're saying, right? They always start, why do you need a website? And they're like, well, it's our website's
More
old.
leads. Yeah.
Yeah.
I had that one too.
Yeah. It doesn't look very good.
I need to polish it. It looks, it doesn't look the part.
For me, it nearly always starts at that level. Yeah. And once you start getting to people saying I need more leads, that's sort of almost like that phase 2. Like they start real basic, like, oh, we haven't done anything for a while, or I'm sick of it, or stuff like that. And it's like, well, how does that help you? But a really easy way to ask that without sounding like you're crazy is to say, and essentially what you're saying, like you repeat the thing that they say, and then ask, why is that a problem? So it's like, well, the website hasn't been, we need a new website because it looks dated. You're like, okay, so it looks dated. Yes, it looks dated. And why is that an issue?
Now, big thing that you need to be okay with if you're doing this, like you think, well, obviously you don't want a website to look dated, right? It's like, I'm going to sound like an idiot if I ask why that's a problem. No, you don't sound like an idiot if you ask why that's a problem. So does it make a difference?
Yeah.
Like, does it make a difference if your website's dated? Like, really? Like, you know what, man, I'll tell you now, like I've had a lot of clients who I know for a fact that getting a new website was going to make 0 impact on their leads and their clients and their business and their revenue. And what they wanted had nothing to do with money. It was to do with position and was to do with ego. So it isn't always the case that a dated looking website is going to actually negatively impact, but it might. And it's good if they tell you if it is. If they say, well, me having like this data website, I know it's costing me leads. Well, how many leads do you reckon you're dropping? Well, I'm for sure. I'm like, I don't know how many exactly, but probably, who knows how many people aren't calling me. It's like, okay, so probably good move to get something fresh then. Probably the longer you wait, the more leads you're dropping along the way. And like, oh yeah. So like it kind of makes them want to do it sooner.
And you can often the problem piece these things together. Like often, like you're saying that with specifically the thing that people forget to ask is that why now? And that's the really one, the uncomfortable one. I think people sort of feel strange about asking, like, why are we doing this stuff now? But that's when you can piece some of this stuff together. Like you're saying, someone says, we're not getting enough leads. And you're like, well, so why are you doing this stuff now? And that's when you find out like, oh, our competitors just rebranded, or our competitor just did their website. And you're like, right. So you're scared, you're feeling the pinch. Yeah. You're actually, it's starting to cost you.
When like the more experienced you are, the more you can kind of project what they're going to say, and the more you can lead the conversation with stuff like, so do you ever feel like maybe the leads are going to your competitors instead of you? Yeah, for sure, man. 100%. Like they didn't say that yet, but that that's a thing that they're probably thinking. And the more experience you have, the more you can come up with statements that they're thinking that they probably wouldn't say. And then when you start doing that, that's when it's like, holy crap, you're next level. But you don't need to do that to get sales and to sell at premiums.
Where that gets easy is when you're niche, but that's another topic.
Yeah, definitely.
So I've got a question here. I don't know if anyone else has bumped any other questions in there. I think I have to refresh this to see stuff. But anyway, I've got a question. So obviously, this took a while to go through even the intro to your framework, like this mini overview of Sell by Helping. It's taken like an hour to go through. But how long does this process take? Like, obviously, you're explaining this stuff, but I know you're a fan of trying to keep this stuff sort of lean and mean. So how long would you say that initial conversation, this sort of sales conversation goes for? And
so I target an hour.
Yep.
I do target an hour. Sometimes I go longer. The longest I've ever gone in a sales meeting was like, I think close to 4 hours, but that wasn't 4 hours of sales meeting. That was 4 hours of talking shit. You have conversations, you get friendly and you start talking about your personal lives and you tell stories and they tell the story and, stuff like that happens. Generally, if I'm focused, the meeting generally will go for about an hour, right? Because just consider this, I'm not scoping out the project. Like generally, I'm not scoping out the project. My projects tend to be very similar. They're usually brochure sites. I have an understanding of a general idea of the site map, what it's going to be as part of the conversation. And it's not necessarily that they're coming to me and saying, I need these pages. I'm telling them the pages they need. And I'm telling them the designs we need to do. And so I know kind of what it's going to be roughly, but I'm not sitting there scoping things out. Like, so if I need to scope things out, then my recommendation wouldn't be like, I wouldn't be sending a proposal to build a site. I'd be sending a proposal to scope out the project if it's a big project. So, I'm not sitting there and spending like an hour and a half, like trying to scope things out. I'm just finding out about the problem they're facing, like what a solution that they need, and literally educating them about all that to get a sale. Like that's my job. And then after that, we do a kickoff meeting as part of the process. Like literally, I try to remove anything that's going to be an impediment to working together, right? Outside of things that I need to filter clients. So like, I'm not going to make it harder than it needs to be. I'm not going to sit there and like potentially lose them by trying to scope this project out in person, like on a sales call when we haven't actually committed to working together. So I need a commitment from them. Then I'll spend my time on that. And then, but so generally an hour is usually fine.
Yeah. I'm big on micro commitments too, which is what some of this stuff is really doing. You're getting people to sort of agree with you and say yes, and show this affirmative micro commitments to the things you're saying. Even from the very start, when you're saying, "Can I take control of this meeting?" You're giving them the power, and then they're affirming that, and that is a positive. That's like positive reinforcement.
Well, and every time you shift phases, it's like you recap and say, so just want to clarify, just want to reconfirm, this is what you're saying, this is what you're saying, this is what you're saying. Is that correct? And say, yes, right? Like, so like, yeah, cool. Okay, I can move on, right? And they're saying yes to quite a bit. There is that whole NLP like thing of they're saying yes, 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 yes. And then they kind of used to saying yes. That's not why I do it. I do it because like, it's important for them to say, like, for them to give me permission to continue. If they're giving you permission, they don't feel like you're not doing anything wrong. Like they're telling you, yes, go ahead. Like I'm interested in this. Makes you feel better about it. Man, if someone turns around and says no, like, nah, man, like that's a lot of shit. It's like, well, now I don't want to keep going. And I shouldn't. So yeah.
So I think one of the things with that, is how long does it go? A lot of this stuff is you're trying to minimize the amount of time that you spend talking, right? This helps build authority, which is crazy. People sort of think they need to say more. But when you ask questions and people just spiel this stuff, they turn around and go like, wow, like you're so smart. You're like, I didn't even do anything. I didn't even have to do. But the cool thing that you do is you're getting them to talk, and then you reiterate and kind of say, look, this is what we've just covered. Is that really quick? Is that like a, like basically dot points? So you said this, you said this, you said this. Are we good?
I'm a bullet points guy. So when I send emails, usually they're bullet points. When I talk to someone, especially if I'm summarizing, I'm basically bullet points in my head, like that. And that's it, man. Like that's a good way to go.
Yeah. We've got a couple of questions here from Emma. She said, are these paid calls? And in an hour, if you can tell that someone is not an ideal client or a good client, are you looking to jump off that call quicker?
Yes.
Yeah.
So these are not paid calls usually. These are sales calls. I have been on some that I've been paid for in advance to jump on the sales call, but that's because I'm doing the sales call for an agency owner who's asking me to do
Yeah.
it for them. So they're paying me to run a sales call for them. And so that happens, but that's pretty rare. Like in my business, no, like I don't charge people to do sales calls because like it's just a cost of doing business, right? You talk to them. Now I do try to minimize my time on these. So before doing a sales call, I usually do what I call a triage call, which I learned from a coach called Taki Moore, which he probably stole that from someone. But
Yeah, I've heard of
it's
it.
basically you do like a 10 to 15-minute call just to kind of feel them out. And there's, you kind of structure that call by asking them, why they're calling you, what they're looking to achieve, what's changed, what's made it like an urgent thing, what they want to happen. You kind of ask a couple of things just to figure out where they're at. And like sometimes some people, it's easier to ask budget at that point. I never ask budget, like unless I'm really confident that they like don't have money. That's when I ask budget. And so I do things where like I feel like they're not a good client. I will do things to push them away. So I'll do things like I will ask about their budgets because I know they're going to say low amount, and then I could tell them it's too low. This is how much you need. And then they're going to be either go or they're going to stay. And at least then I know the budget's not a problem anymore. Or I try to push them off and push them into a form. Now, I don't use forms to do sales because it's very hard to run your process properly in a form.
Yeah.
Like you can't have a two-way conversation with the form. It's one way. So my forms are literally when I think that someone's a piece of crap and I don't want to talk to them, I'll push them to a form because based on the form, then I can say, well, this isn't going to be a good fit. Or they're going to turn around and surprise me, which has happened once. And even they still didn't go ahead as a client. So
It's like a last chance for the red flag clients, really.
yeah,
Prove me wrong.
Okay, go away. Yeah. Like you can surprise me, but you're probably not going to because I'm a pretty
Yeah.
good judge of character at this point.
Yep.
So yeah, but it is a case of you need to figure out what your filtering's like with stuff
So
like
that's
that.
what, but with the triage thing, that's a lot more like the way that I would do stuff. So it's really good to hear you say that because, yeah, like an hour is once someone's basically committed and you feel like,
but no,
you're not guaranteed the project.
After like in the understanding phase, like I've been like, this isn't going to work out. Like what you're looking for, what you're looking to achieve, isn't even what I do. Like that's happened heaps of times. Like I don't know what the hell they were thinking, but they're like this guy's going to be some marketing god and he's going to do all my marketing for me. It's like, no, I do websites. Like I do marketing strategy, but I don't actually run like campaigns. So yeah, like I've pushed people away after like 10 minutes in. And there's been times when I've gone through and like I've realized that what they need is beyond me. Actually, Roby's on this call. I've referred to him like when someone wanted these real custom dashboards and all this stuff. I'm like, I don't really want to do that. That's like, could I do it?
Roby can do that. He's got it sorted.
Roby's amazing at that sort of stuff. It's kind of his jam. So I refer to him. I don't know
Roby.
if it panned out or anything, but like that was a potentially good client. Just not good for me because I know that I would have gone bored. I would have jumped, like I would have hated that project after like a month. And yeah, it wouldn't have been a fun time for me. So,
And so this is almost like probably more detailed than some people are doing for sales. And I'd say this isn't like a discovery though. It's like that part between,
this is
digging
not discovery.
deeper.
No, this is it's a sales call. So this is a
still
sales
sales.
call. It's just the way you do your sales is kind of like doing a mini discovery. Like because you're discovering if they have enough, like if they're knowledgeable enough. So if I'm asking people about this stuff and their goals and what they're trying to achieve, and they're like, I don't know, man, I just want a website. Like it's not going to be a good fit. If they don't know their audience, if they don't know, the way they market, or they don't have any marketing, then we may need to do like, I'm not going to recommend the website because I don't think it's going to solve a problem for them. Might recommend a marketing session, like a strategy session or something.
Yeah.
Or so like that was called discovery. Discovery is not scoping. Like just a heads up for everyone. Like, don't call it discovery and then you're sitting there going, okay, cool. What features does this need? Like,
how many pages do you want? What are they called? That's not discovery.
That's not discovery. Discovery is identifying things like the target audience, identifying like their marketing message, like what it needs to be. It's the stuff that usually like I used to have a business partner before we got together. He used to just refer those people to a business coach, because they would come to him with his, like, thinking they want to spend like $4 or $5 on a website, but they have this goal but no clarity around it. They'll go to the business coach. The business coach will give them clarity, and they come back with a $30,000 project. So, but then I do that now. So, and again, it's paid. That's a paid thing.
So Emma was saying as well, how many calls are you jumping on like this a week? And are you being more selective in who you're jumping on the calls with, because they're so long? And that she's been told to never let a call go over 20 or 30 minutes, but that never happens. Yes, it never happens.
No, like you can't, like, how are you going to do a 20, 30-minute call? Like, imagine you're about to, like it's going really well. It's like, oh, you know what? We're hitting 20 minutes. We're hitting half an hour. I better shut it down. Like, you never get clients.
I think this is some of this stuff. It's a little bit like, as a designer, maybe, design metaphor will help people, but it's like, as you art direct yourself as you go along, you're looking at your stuff and going, is this working? Is this working? You don't just keep heading in a direction that's not working.
Yeah.
And it's like you're saying as well, if it's not an ideal client, you're going to jump off or try and, see if those red flags are really true.
How many calls I do a week? It depends on how many leads I get a week. So there have been weeks where I've done 0 calls because I haven't had any good leads come through. There have been weeks that I've had 5 or 6 calls that week. And would I take more? Yeah, I would, if they all pass the filtering thing. Because hey, if I'm getting enough leads, I am not going to be touching any other work. I'm just going to be closing those deals and getting other people to do the work. But yeah, like I am very selective of who I work with. I wasn't before, and they're the kinds of clients that I end up regretting having now. Like, I regret having my site name on the bottom, and I kind of want to get back into their sites to delete it, but I can't. So yeah, no, I'm pretty selective, and I try, basically what I'm looking for now when people contact me is reasons not to work together. So, does the business seem boring? Is the project going to be boring? Do they seem like they're going to be annoying to work with? Is it going to be something where I'm not going to make much of a difference? And if I need the money, I'll say yes. And if I don't, like, if I'm doing all right that month, then maybe I won't stress too much about it. So look, you do need to factor in, right? All this stuff is great, but it does depend on you getting enough leads. It does depend on you charging enough money, right? And you being in a financial position where you can afford, like, to be fussy.
Right? Well, I'm going to say that doing this will more than likely help you get to that point, now, especially in a couple of things. It'll help you actually need less leads, because if you can close more and you can close, this is probably where this has helped most people, especially looking at the testimonials. And from what I've found, it's giving you a process to charge more, especially because you're really helping them understand some of that. It's setting people up for value-based pricing in their mind.
My number one client is Noah, right? Noah closes brochure sites in the States for over $20,000.
Yeah.
Right. And it's a brochure site. It's the same kind of site that probably most of us would design and build.
He's got a great testimonial as well on your Sell by Helping page.
Yeah. When I first met Noah, he was like, I think he was going from about 3,000 a site to like 6,000, 7,000 or so. Then he listened to me talk at an event, closed a $9,000 deal after that. And then gave him a couple of, like, a bit of advice and a critique and a couple of sessions to tweak his process. And that's just kept going up and up and up. And so he doesn't need that many people to go ahead. Like, if he gets, like, he had like 4 or 5 sales in the last 2 months, but that's like over $100 and something thousand in sales. It's pretty nuts.
And you can start to see why this, that idea of capping yourself at 20, 30 minutes, you're investing in yourself. If you can especially start to go from, sort of jumping from a $6,000, $25,000 websites by spending more time on a sales meeting.
No, we'll do like 3 or 4 meetings to get that, like, sometimes. So it's the bigger it is, the more you invest. Now, the thing is, right, that whole 20, 30 minutes, I believe, to filter someone, yes. Right. If after 20, 30 minutes,
your triage call.
That's your triage call. And that's like, maybe even the start of the sales meeting. But like, when you're like, yes, this is a good fit, I think I can help them and all that sort of stuff. Then you take as long as you need to take, as long as you're not hitting a point where you're starting to tell them stuff that they can do and like giving them the answers, because that's where you get taken advantage of in this whole sell by helping concept. You start telling them what they need to do step by step. They take that and they go do it. So don't give away too much. Yeah.
Well, I like to think that what you tell them is like not the
what,
actual,
not the how.
Yeah, the what, not the how. That's exactly
that's my rule. What, not how.
Yeah. I've got one last question. I don't think anyone else has asked anything else, but I was going to say, in that sort of step where you're asking people stuff and they start really light, like why do you need a website? Oh, because it's old. Oh, I don't like blue anymore, like whatever.
Mm-hmm.
How do you know when you've got to the real stuff? Because there is a point where not everyone's going to turn around and go like, oh, it's because I need $1 million. Like that's not everyone's
not
problem.
Everyone.
Yeah. So like,
there's a
when do you
couple
know?
of things, right? There's like what you call like motivators or drivers. People have drivers, right? So yeah, I don't like the blue anymore. So why is that a problem? Well, I don't know. I don't like it. I shouldn't be there. But why? Why does that matter? Like, does it make a difference really? And it's like, well, no, it bothers me. Why does it bother you though? Because I don't like the color and it's like, it's mine and this should represent who I am or whatever. So does having a site that represents you and allows you to be yourself, does that matter? Does it make a difference to your business? You know what? It doesn't matter about the business. In this, it matters to me. Cool. They're getting emotional about it. Like it's important to them. They're getting passionate. So there's motivators and drivers. There's things like money. Ego is a big one, right?
Yep.
Like, there was this financial planning firm once that I didn't go ahead with because they wanted a site that looked great and they wanted to be number one on Google for financial planning. I'm like, okay, cool. Why? Like, because that's where we should be. That's who we are. That's where we should be. Cool. Guess how many clients they wanted to get? 0. They wanted 0 new clients. They could not handle any more clients. This was 100% an ego thing.
Yeah.
And I was like, look, like number one, like new site alone isn't going to do it. You're going to need to invest in SEO. But number two, like there's no benefit to doing that. Like no benefit. Yep. Like your existing clients don't give a shit if you're number one. They're happy, man. Focus on doing a better service. And they weren't happy with the way I was like kind of answering their questions and stuff. So we kind of went our separate ways. But that was what they wanted. It was an ego thing. The ego was a driver. So you can actually look this stuff up, right? You start looking up, drivers of purchasing decisions and things like that. And you find the kind of stuff. It's really interesting when you start looking into this, right? Into psychology and consumer behavior, right? There are things that drive people. So the very basic one, it's called like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If you do any marketing at uni, which I did, you learn this. And it's like this little pyramid thing. And at the bottom level, survival, right? Like, so you don't die, right? So if you're at the bottom, what you're looking for, if you don't have it already, this is what you're looking for. You're looking for survival. You're looking for like food, water, potentially shelter. Then next level was, I think next level was more like shelter and like comfort and home and whatever, right? Yeah. So if you're like homeless, you probably want a home. It's a big driver for you. If you're comfortable with your food and everything. Then you start looking, it's like more community. So it's like connection, network, love, family, all that sort of stuff. Like, so if you have food over your head, if you're getting food in your belly, roof over your head, you're probably looking like that's next, right? Then once you have that, then you're looking for kind of the like affluence, like the like success stuff, like things, possessions, like having nice things and being seen, perceived, whatever, like where you're standing in the community and stuff. And then once you have that, or once you realize that that's all bullshit, it doesn't matter, then you're looking for self-actualization, and it's like a purpose in life, right? And so there are the things that people go through. And so a lot of people, it's like in the business side of things, it's like we're looking for like money, right? And why do they want the money? Because they want to be able to survive. They want to be able to thrive. They're looking to buy stuff for themselves. Like, what difference does the money make to them? Well, I get to spend time with my family. Like, so whatever it is that they're looking for, that's kind of driving them. Some people, it is purely about the ego, right? They have the money, they're making money already. And it's like, man, I just want to be seen as the best because I'm the best. I need to be the best. Like, yeah, and that's just one way of looking at things. It's pretty useful in business. So you can start looking at other stuff. It's really, really interesting when you start looking into it. So you find out what drives people. When you start learning about what drives people, and then you start identifying it when they start telling you these things in sales meetings or in any meeting. And it's like, that's it. That's what it is. Right. Like I will generally stop like when we get to like a dollar value of what this is worth, right? Because man, I'm not trying to max out and eke out every single dollar out of someone. Unless I can tell that they're not that interested in the money thing. Like if I can see that they're not that invested in it, if it's like, yeah, like, I just want, I'm going to make this much money, cool. But they don't seem excited. Then it's like, but why, man? Like, what do you want to do? And then they start telling you about how, well, the dream is at that point, I can afford to do this. And then I can afford to buy my dream home, or I can afford to buy my RV. And like, they call them RVs, like, that's in America, right? Like, I don't know, camper vans, whatever. Like, I can buy one of those and camp around Australia, like, or wherever the hell. I can go scuba diving like 6 months of the year. Like, there are things that drive people. They want the money for that. So if they seem pumped about the money, it's enough. Like, that's good enough. If they're not, you can go further and find out, well, what do you want to do with the money? Like, I mean, it's personal, right? It's a little bit uncomfortable. That's why I don't really bother too much, because like, I don't need to charge that much. But that's something you can definitely do. So yeah, you find out what drives people. You find out their motivators. You find out the triggers for them. And sorry, a bit deep. Bit deep. It's an interesting topic. I could talk about this stuff for a long time, but yeah.
Yep. There we go. I think that was all my questions. I haven't seen anything else pop up in the feed. But I think we've done over an hour and a half, so that's pretty amazing. So thank you so much for just giving up your time and running through that. Hey,
sorry, man. I was just checking.
All good. And what I'll do is, I know you weren't going to plug yourself, so anyone watching, if you're interested in learning more about this, go to nickgulic.com. You can find his course there, Sell by Helping, if you want to do
/ course redirects to it. Yeah, just nickgulic.com/course. There is man, I'm pretty sure I gave you a coupon code you can give to people.
Well, I might have, and if you do, I will pull it out.
We'll find it.
And I will, yes. So if there's any sort of offer,
hefty discount. Yeah, it's a pretty hefty discount.
If there's a hefty discount for people in the group, then that will be amazing. And I'll make sure that I will put this below. I'm going to go have something to eat after this, so don't look for it right now. It'll be there, and it'll be there tomorrow morning. I'll make sure I'll put it. My brain is fried. It's 9:30. I've not had any tea. This has been.
And you haven't had any alcohol, man.
I know. I've got to catch up.
I finished mine a while ago, and I'm like just kind of waiting for these little ice cubes to melt and just drinking them too.
But be assured, there will be a coupon. There will be a discount for people in the group. And I haven't finished the course, but even what I've done, it has made an impact. And like Nick said, there's been people who have just done module 1 on mindset and started to see an improvement in the way that they're doing stuff. I highly recommend it. There's other people here that are already recommending it. Trish has said to recommend it. Look, thanks, Dave. Thank you, Rich. Thank you, Emma and Trish, everyone for joining. Thanks, Roby. Yeah, it's been really good, and thank you again, Nick, for giving up your time and sharing all of that stuff. And yeah, I can't thank you enough. And I'll see you on the next chat. We do these fairly often, but it's not so often you're in the hot seat having to present everything that you know. So thank you.
That's not everything I know, man. Come on.
Well, it's giving away half of your course part of your course for free. It's giving away the framework, mate. So,
man, look, if that's enough for people to go out and do better, then that's amazing, man. Like, I do like to help people. Like, it is sell by helping. Like, so I like to help people. It's not hey, buy my course and it's the only way you can get sales. Like, no, there's heaps of ways to get sales. Take it, use it, enjoy.
Awesome. Well, thanks again, and I'll see you soon. Thanks, Nick.
Right.
Bye.
Yeah.